חברים, בוקר טוב לכולם. הוא שר החינוך נפתלי בנט ויושב ראש הבית היהודי יישא כעת הצהרה, לאחריו שרת המשפטים. השר, בבקשה.
Good morning, everybody. The state of Israel is in the midst of a crisis, security, confidence. The problem is not our enemies. Enemies we've always had, and today as well. In the War of Independence, we were only 600,000 people, some of them survivors of the Holocaust, and we prevailed over 7 armies of the Arab countries with little weapon and a lot of faith. So it was in the Six-Day War as well. Vicious enemies are nothing new to us. By the way, the situation today is not more dangerous than just a few months when the Prime Minister acted in order to topple his own government from political reasons or because of the radio crisis. Even then, it wasn't right to make politics out of security. There is no apocalypse on the horizon. There are enemies, but the enemies are not the ones that worry me. Something bad is happening to us from within. For quite a few years, including in the last decade of the government headed by Netanyahu, that the state of Israel stopped prevailing. I saw it with my own eyes in the Second Lebanon War as a commander of a force in the western area of Lebanon. I saw the confusion, I saw the problematics, the lack of determination. I saw the lack of spirit. What I really liked, I went into politics. Ladies and gentlemen, we are making difficulties for our combatants. Legal problems and conceptual problems. Our combatants are more afraid of the legal advisor of the army than from the Hamas. Things that were very clear in the past all of a sudden become doubtful. For some reason, somebody decided to call the terrorists who sent bombs to our families in the word children, although there are over 20, most of them. And the moment we call them children, then this distorted morality moves to them jeopardizing our children than we killing them. After the launching of more than 350 rockets from Hamas to the Israeli settlements and a missile towards a bus full of soldiers, all of a sudden we tell ourselves in all sorts of means and ways that everything is okay and that Hamas is challenged as it never was. When every illegal balcony in Tel Aviv is demolished within days, the government of Israel is afraid to evacuate an illegal Arab post, Khan el-Ahmar, in spite of all the decrees of the Supreme Court, because they're afraid. What are they going to say about us in Europe? What are we going to say about us in Hague? The wisdom gave its way to legal distortions, and things are convoluted and mediocre. The murderers of Israel get salaries of 15,000 euros every month. Their families are honored. They get allowances. And we're standing by and do nothing in order to stop it. It takes us long months to demolish a house of a terrorist, and we start looking for all sorts of points. So we demolish half a room as if the terrorist is going to consider us the same way and the family of the victims. Listen, in this moment, 102 houses of terrorists are already appointed for demolishing, but we don't have the spirit or the force to demolish them. Hamas and Hezbollah are more audacious day in, day out, because they believe that we're afraid to confront them. What the Prime Minister calls responsibility is interpreted by our enemies sometimes as hesitation, and the line between them is very narrow. I tell you that the ship of security of the State of Israel is navigating in the last decade to a bad way, and the most dangerous thing is that we started to think that there's no solution for terrorists, for missiles, that there's nothing we can do about it, but there is something we can do about it. When Israel will want to win, we will go back to winning. This is not fateful. You can take a ship that navigates to a certain direction and change the whole trail. We came to politics in order to put an alternative, to replace the hesitation with force, the tiredness with initiative, the confusion with faith. For example, just a few years ago, the governments of Israel, including the one of Netanyahu, released terrorists en masse, because that's the way you do it. And we said at the time, ultimatum, some 5 years ago, this is it. No more. And since then, they stopped releasing, and even for the first time in the history of the State of Israel, they released terrorists to prison. We proved with deeds. The microphone doesn't work, he says. We proved with deeds. We can change directions. In the academe, in education, in justice, and in politics. Until a few years ago, the entire people of Israel knew that a Palestinian state is going to be established. We changed the trail from left to right in order to generate the change in the security perception of Israel, in order to give back the spirit of war and the deterrence against our enemies, in order to prove innovation and creativity. I approached the Prime Minister a few days ago in order to appoint me as Minister of Defense. After the former Minister of Defense failed completely, he just neglected the battle zone. I wanted a completely different direction, to take responsibility in a difficult moment, to stand erect. In spite of the difficulties we all know, there was not one consultant or one of my friends who thought that it's a good idea for me. They all said, you're not going to succeed to change in a few months. There are all sorts of constraints. You're going to be failed by others. The government is not stable, but I decided to do it. In our conversation on Friday, I clarified to the Prime Minister that I'm not putting an ultimatum, and I accepted with appreciation his answer that he says sees in me a candidate to be Minister of Defense. But in practice, Netanyahu decided yesterday, because of his own reasons, to take this position on himself. In his speech, the Prime Minister promised to the Israeli public to change the trail, to lead towards a revolution in security, to change a trail of 10 years towards force. If the Prime Minister is serious in his intentions, and I wish to believe his words yesterday, then I am saying here to the PM, we declare, now that we are taking away all our political demands, and we're going to help you in this huge mission that Israel will go back to prevailing. I suppose that I will pay a political price in the next few hours or days. Never mind, I shall overcome. You win some, you lose some. It's preferable that the Prime Minister will win over me in a political battle than Hania will prevail over the state of Israel. And I want to tell you something that happened to me yesterday. After we declared, Minister Shaked and I, on the press conference, and all the rumors that we're going to resign, the whole world was looking for me. Suddenly I saw the name of Professor Uman, the Nobel laureate for economy and doctrine of games. And I can tell you that 4 years ago, in the negotiation that I had with Prime Minister at the time for the establishment of this government, it was Professor Uman who said me with his cute voice, he said, "You make one demand and go with it to the end." And I did. I wanted the justice portfolio for Ayelet Shaked, and I did, and the rest is history. And yesterday, Professor Uman told me he is a lover of Israel, a bereaved father who lost his son in the First Lebanon War, and he said to me, "Naftali, don't resign." I asked him, "Why not?" According to the game doctrine, it's exactly the opposite of what you told me 4 years ago. It's going to make it difficult for me next time when I negotiate with Netanyahu. And then the professor said to me, "Yes, it's true. You're right, what you're saying. But the state is more important than anything." I don't know how long this government is going to survive with 61 MK. Some of them are rebels. I didn't change my estimate that it'll be difficult, but we are ready to try. If, in fact, the government will start finally to lead to the right track, to act as a real right-wing government, then it's worth trying. The ball is now in the court of Prime Minister. In the next few weeks, the security revolution is going to stand to a test. Are we going to release ourselves from our flaccidity towards the Hamas? Are we going to evacuate Khan el-Ahmer? Are we going to stop these summer camps for the terrorists and all the money they're getting? It will not be worth murdering Jews in the state of Israel anymore. The test will be in deeds, not in words, because the public is fed up with words. We're not going to be viewers in the dress circle who are testing their Prime Minister, but of course we'll work hand in hand with him in order to help. I also have to say that I'm going to go back very happily with great love to lead the education of the children of Israel. Thank you very much. Ayelet Shaked, Minister of Justice. Good afternoon. My political story begins with a great crisis, personally and nationally. A crisis that brought me to complete lack of trust of politics. In 2004, 14 years ago, when I saw the Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, head of the Likud with 40 seats, leading the state of Israel to bad places in my mind, I decided that I cannot just stand aside. It's time to do something. As a Likud member, I pulled my sleeves and I started to work for Likud. I believed in the power of the people. I believe that the people of Israel will not enable this disaster to happen. As we know, we are against the disengagement, and we were very successful. Sharon lost the referendum, and he said he was going to respect the results, but he just said it. Sharon led a party, and he actually worked against the will of his party members, and he jeopardize the renewal of Jewish politics. We know that here we have PM Netanyahu, who was one of the Likud members, and after I understood where things are determined, it was not an option for me to go to politics. In 2006, together with Naftali Bennett, I served faithfully Benjamin Netanyahu in the opposition for a year and a half. In 2013, we decided to jump into the water ourselves. After the elections, the Jewish Home, our party got 12 seats. It's no secret Netanyahu didn't want us in his government. And he said, although we were the natural partners, ideologically speaking, a natural partner is measured with ideological values which are mutual, common. And the question is, what's the benefit of the state in his eyes? We actually thought that we were the natural partner for national government headed by the Likud, but we were wrong. We had to make an alliance with Yair Lipud, and we would have been left in the opposition. But in the elections of 2015, the Prime Minister summarized with Naftali Bennett that he's going to be Minister of Defense in the next government. At that time, Netanyahu really believed wholeheartedly that Naftali Bennett is worth serving in this important role. So at least I would wish to believe. After the elections, when the party went down to 8 seats, the Prime Minister breached his promise. Naftali Bennett got upon himself the education ministry and did wonders in it in the last term of office. I admit that Bennett and the others in our party are strange birds. We see in politics a mission. We believe that politics is a tool in order to realize policy and to serve the public. Many people pleaded with us to resign in the last few days. After Lieberman did it, some people were angry with us. How did we miss the moment? I'm sorry to disappoint those people. We are public messengers with responsibility. We will never evade responsibility. We will never go to a political step just with the image while jeopardizing the national security of the State of Israel. Naftali Bennett is the right man to be the Minister of Defense of the State of Israel and to instill new spirit in the system, to bring about the fact that Israel will go back to prevailing, that our enemies will go back to being afraid of us. All around us is storms. The Middle East has its own rules, and unfortunately the State of Israel acts with its own rules, with its own tools. The security policy in Israel shows hesitation, stammering, and the policy of sitting and doing nothing. The Israeli solidarity is replaced by containment as long as we talk only about the people in the south. The Israeli creativity and thinking outside of the box were replaced by tiredness and the thought that there's no solution. The striving for victory was replaced by the shameful behavior of the Minister of Defense, a real gift for the Hamas. But we are public messengers. We're not going to evade responsibility. We're not going to choose shame. We're not going to give the gift that Lieberman gave to terrorists in the Gaza Strip. They are looking at us. The whole Middle East is looking towards us. It may be that the decision we made will jeopardize us personally. We decided to act with national responsibility. We don't have the luxury to consider our personal consideration. Our target is too important. The Jewish Home Party is going to be the national compass of this government. For the first time since the right started reigning, now it does. We did a lot of things in education, in justice, and we're still going strong. I hope that the day will come that we will do it also with national security of the State of Israel. And for me, I have a committee for selecting judges on Friday. I have to go to work. Thank you.